Real estate is essential, and this class is complimentary educational classes and is offered at no charge to you. And it's designed to provide valuable information, whether you're planning a move, helping a family member, or simply preparing for future housing decisions. Family members are encouraged to attend. I can't emphasize that enough because they will need this information. I've seen too many situations in which children made decisions for family members, for the senior member, thinking they were doing the right thing. And it wasn't congruent with what the senior wanted. And so they ended up miserable. And there's a couple of them I'm dealing with right now. But we want it to be a family situation. I will show you some examples a little bit later. Full disclosure, we have planned to discuss mortgage products, the escrow process, and holding title. Elva Wormley is my mortgage broker and branch manager of C2 Financial. She will not be here today due to a family emergency. Of a favorite cousin of hers passed away. So she's leaving today, in fact. So we had to do some pivoting real quick. But she promises that she will come back and do this again. I will do my presentation around housing with some financial options. I'm Mickelin on the far left, Elva's in the center, and Chris Miller is here with us, and she's going to give her presentation and tie all this information together for us. Okay, I'm going to talk about the demographics of our aging population, and that's us baby boomers. And this market is the fastest growing demographic in the United States. There are approximately 11,000 boomers turning 65 every day. Can you imagine? And it's gone up. When I first started, it was 10,000. So it's really gone up. So we're aging faster. We're aging more, but living longer. And we want to live well if we're going to live longer. And over time, the number from this 11,000 will increase. Case in point, there are more boomers turning 65 than teens turning 18 due to people either delaying childbirth or not having children at all. Those numbers are going down. My why is a part of this whole presentation, and there were lessons learned from caregiving. And I wish to, I won't go into a lot of detail because it's very long, but I was a caregiver, and I didn't know much at that time about the aging process and what was included. So I was a caregiver for my mom and dad for approximately 14 years. And I was winging it. I had no education, no background, because I was younger, and I thought about what 40 and 50-year-old people think. But my parents were aging. But I will not tell you a lot of the details because it's too cumbersome for me to even think about now. But I missed what I was looking at, and so did my siblings. We were in denial. We thought everything would be like it was when we were growing up. Mom and dad had it going on. We were blind to the truth that they were aging and not what I was prepared for. We landed in court in Kansas City, where my parents lived, applying for conservatorship. And we had to go to classes that were required to become conservators. We went through 2 attorneys. Family confusion, battle over with the creditors and over creditors, who was paying what. And the list is exhausting. So I don't even want to go there again. But I finally worked my way out of it. But it took me a time to do so. Much later on, I said I would not want anyone to go through what I was experiencing at the time. For example, financial losses, emotional upheaval, relationship battles, and I was a physical and emotional and spiritual wreck. I did not let anyone, including my family, break me. I was going to do whatever I had to do, always relying on my faith. In retrospect, the short of the story is there was no plan, no goals. Just get out of this mess as quickly as you can, a mess that I did not create, but I was a party to nevertheless. Then many years later, I was introduced to the SR, since I was already in real estate, I was introduced to the SRES certification, which is Senior Real Estate Specialist Certification under NAR, the National Association of Realtors. And I am sharing all this to emphasize the importance of planning ahead to avoid costly mistakes that you may or may not recover from. That's why it's so important for the young people. If you have adult children who are raising families, they need to know all this information so they don't make the same mistakes like I did. And I'm going to talk about real estate in today's economy. As you know, we are living in uncertain times, unlike we have never experienced in the past, but we still need to set goals and plans for our lives. My area of concentration, like I said before, is real estate with some overlap in finance. And I will leave most of that discussion to Elva. And Chris is a national speaker on aging and as a legacy wealth strategist. She will take all of our disciplines together and put it in a neat bow for you. And then I want to ask you questions. As you age, and think about this, where will you live? The next 5 years, where will you live? Next 10 years, out of the area with family or retirement community. And why is real estate so important to us? There's not a community that I've ever gone to or a place I've ever visited that was not interested in owning their own home and owning a piece of the dirt under it. And one of the reasons, of course, is pride of ownership. Ownership has been a part of the American dream before there was an America. Owning one's home and maintaining and improving it provides security, a built-in savings plan called equity, and a sense of accomplishment. Real estate can be passed on to heirs, but apartment rent cannot, nor an apartment can be passed on. That is it's just like a flat line. If you're a realtor, you're renting, you are staying at the same level because you don't own it. It's a hedge against inflation. If you have a fixed rate mortgage, for example, principal and interest do not change over 30 years. But even if you have an adjustable rate, you are still earning equity. In some cases, rents are higher than mortgage payments. And depending on the market you live in, rent could be even cheaper than a mortgage. But the fact remains, you are a renter with zero equity. And real estate is for the long term, it's not for the short term. But if you are renting for a short amount of time, then it could make sense, financial good sense if you're renting. But over the long term, no, you are still a renter. You are not gaining equity. And of course, you can leverage. Where else can you obtain appreciation on 100% on investment that you only own 10 or 20% of? Then, of course, as you live longer in your property, your equity position increases. And of course, owning your home establish stability. Residents don't have to worry about being kicked out by a landlord. So that is a definite security issue right there. Now I'm going to go into most of you are going to be aging in place. Is your home part of your aging plan? And we're going to talk about aging in place, which is probably the cheapest way, and most people do. And as long as you're thriving and if you can stay in your home, that is a very good choice and one that I've exercised in myself and recommended, especially if you don't have any particular health issues. The children and grandchildren can be a part of your aging plan, and home equity to help build a family so you can pass it on. So you can see some examples of a couple there and a family that with that shared equity, there's a lot that you can do. One of the examples I want to show you for people who can age in place. With the passage of SB 9, homeowners can build units on their own land and have a speedy approval from the building department, especially here in San Jose. You can get it in as fast as 6 weeks because of our housing shortage. So they're really encouraging, and there's several very close to where I live. And let's look at ADUs as a solution to one of our aging and housing issues.
My parents' garage, it was like just for junk, and it was very surprised that they can convert old garage into such a beautiful space that they can use and they can give it to a caregiver. My mom was want to express her gratitude to Rebecca that she made this place so beautiful and so livable, and also she really appreciated all her help.
It was converted from the garage and it's on your own land that you own. And the caveat to that is, and I might mention this because Rebecca certainly told me about it. You know, you're increasing the value of your property with an ADU. You have a separate address. It's like condominiumizing your home, and you're increasing value. They could have certainly a separate entrance into their own property, own address, and all that. But the caveat is, if you must like the person that you're living with on that your same property, because if you ever have to go to an eviction because something happens, whatever the case may be, um, it's costly to do that. So always that's a step you may want to discuss with family if it's you're going to have a caregiver with mom and dad, or if you're bringing in your adult children or grandchildren, is have that discussion before you delve into something like this. It is recommended that you talk to an attorney to writing this kind of agreement to protect the seller as well as the buyer, because it can have some loopholes there. So and that's certainly a good option if you do seller financing or a lease to own. And I'm going to give an example of a lease to own. Well, it was sort of different, but if you have a landlord that you've been with for a while and they might be ready to sell, you might approach them about doing a lease option where you're putting aside a portion of your money or your rent. It might increase a little bit to put aside for your down payment. And that's the biggest crux to some of our new buyers to getting into a home is the down payment amount. And the reason I'm mentioning these as a consideration to get into the market, townhouses and condo living. Condos are staying on the market longer. They're not as desirable. They can be very desirable, but it's for a certain niche market. Everybody wants a single family, and certainly you can graduate from a condo townhouse to a single family resident. But the competition is very stiff, especially when we don't have a lot of inventory. But condos are easy entry. And of course, the condo, it could, now I'm going to call this is somebody's property that we know. It's called, to me, stacked housing. I have no idea if somebody's living on the second unit or if it's up and down, but there are such thing as condo style, townhouse style condos where they look like townhouses, but they're actually condos. And the difference is on a condo, you do not own the land. You have an undivided interest. It's a common interest development where you have interest in the whole project, not just where your property sits. On the opposite side is a townhouse, a typical looking townhouse, and you have up and down, you separated from your neighbor, and you own the land. So those are different caveats to a single family that might be a consideration for a first time buyer. And people who go this route could be a first timer. It could be an investor who wants to hold it for rent, or it could be a young couple just starting out with their new property, a new home. Let's go to one of my other ones, another option. This is one of my favorites. Now, I have to tell you about this young lady, Natalie. That's not her, but her name is Natalie. She did something very creative several years ago, and I really admire her for what she did. She had been renting for quite a long time, had a good relationship with her landlord. She decided she wanted to be a homeowner. So she went through this class with Airbnb arbitrage, and that's a good way of earning a side income too. It's doing Airbnb, renting out rooms and whatever. But in her case, she wanted to be a homeowner. She got somebody to sublet from her. Now she then sort of like became a landlord in effect, but she didn't own it, of course. But she would collect the rent, pay it, but she lived with another friend, like couch surfing. She was single, she not married, didn't have to worry about family or anything like that. But she was able over time to save enough money for a down payment, and she bought her first home using Airbnb arbitrage and bought another home subsequent to that one. So hands off, thumbs up for her. Then another one of my favorites. That's another one that's right here in the Bay Area. This was in Oakland. This is generational living at its best. They bought this property 20 years ago. They wanted to stay together. They had their own units. You see the three there on the side. They had babies. They had weddings, barbecues, all on their own property. And then they outgrew it. So you can see where there's at least three generations on that image at the bottom left. And then they're eating, playing with the kids and whatnot, and just having a grand time. So once they outgrew the house, they sold it and then moved to Berkeley. They, of course, land values and everything went up in those 20 years. So they couldn't have the same ideal situation, but it's ideal for them because they still live close together in Alameda and in Berkeley. So they were able to accomplish their generational living through that. And if you can no longer stay in your home, and Julie will love this. She'll have to tell us about Tracy Lakes and Tracy and River Island. They went last Thursday to visit these retirement communities. These are resort-like communities where you can sell your existing home if it's and Julie, you might tell us about that too. Sell their existing home if it's too big, too old, they don't want to be in the Bay Area any longer. They can entertain these types of properties, 55 up, plus one person has to be at least 55. And it's like resort-like living. It's great. At the top is like the community house on the left at the top, and that's a typical resident there at the bottom at Tracy Lakes. On the opposite side, and this is not too, Lathrop is not that far from Tracy. This is a single family home on the bottom right, and their community at the top. Golfing is the one I like. That's the one in the middle. That's San Juan Oaks. That's in Hollister. Now that's a typical resident, the one in the center bottom. And then that's a view of the property. It's huge. It's like in the country, but it's a gorgeous, not far from 156 highway. And then when you've outlived these and can no longer take care of yourself, we have independent living. Now, this is just a sample. I just went to they had a summer garden party in Evergreen. They have about 5 of these communities in San Jose, in the Bay Area. And I went to the one in Evergreen. And they provide all the things that I think you would want somebody to provide if you could not care for yourself any longer. It's usually 24/7 facility where somebody's always there. Some of them even have nurses on staff. They check on you. A lot of them wear those little necklaces around, so if you fall or something, you can call somebody for help. So you can also, the cheapest is deep independent living. So you don't need any of the services. That's the cheapest rate. Then it goes up from there to assisted living. And the more services that you require, of course, the price goes up. And then this facility also has memory care. And that's the most expensive is memory care. I'm going back to my disclaimer. We're not recommending anybody. We are just giving you good, solid information, and the choices are all yours. So if you have somebody, a realtor, whether it's a loan person, invite them in. We want to expand our network. So we're open to all that. So without further ado, Chris has been here and I met Chris through our SRES. Julie introduced us to her. Oh gosh, it was about a month ago. And what she does, like I say, she's if your goal is to live well, leave a legacy, and build generational wealth, you want to talk to Chris Miller or somebody like her. She's a strategist. She's going to be raffling off her book at the end, so we want you to stay tuned for that as well. So without further ado, it's all yours, Chris.
All right. Thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege to be here today. Let me go ahead and do the share screen part here. What if you could create income you'll never outlive? And that's what we're going to talk about. When I started basically helping seniors, and that's really how I started. And what happened was, back in the day, in about 1991, 92, I was a paralegal. I was working with an attorney, and a widow came in, and she said, she wanted a living trust, and all she had was a car and a house and no money. And at the time, the attorney wanted to charge her $5,000. And she left the room. I really felt bad for her because she needed the trust. And she wanted to go to her family with no middleman, no probate. And he looked at me and he said, no deal. And then I said, bye. That's what pushed me into, you know what? I'm the one that does all the work and he gets all the money. So I was one of the first people. I'm not bragging. It's just what happened. I was blessed to be one of the first people in California to start doing workshops on what's a will and what's a trust. Nobody had heard about living trusts 35, 40 years ago. And I've been in practice 36 years. And with that said, I was breaking new territory. And the attorneys were like, wait a minute, no, I'm not practicing law without a license. I'm educating. And there were so many paralegals during this time that started to just become independent and do divorces and bankruptcies and trusts that there was a shift. The shift was the state bar had to admit us. So they created a designation basically to get more CE credits and bonds and money. And we are legal document assistants. So Warren Buffett is telling everybody, shows everybody, it's a casino. So you got to realize how much money you want safe, how much money you want to gamble, and how much money you want to create these beautiful legacies for yourself and your family. I really enjoy the family generational that you were talking about a little bit earlier. This is just such a great way to bring it all back together, because the family really is the core, of our heart. And like you said, the church and the whole community, we need that. So the idea, and I'm not selling products, but I'm looking at combinations on how lots of things that people have together. So I'm a legacy wealth strategist, not a financial planner. I'm not giving you a checklist. I am literally giving you strategies that you can use. And each era of life is completely different. Like when you're 50, it's hard to imagine what it's like when you're 70, let alone what are you really going to need. The plan is to be consistent and managing the wealth and having the solid plan. So, 94% of millionaires stick to a budget, right? They're taking that money and saving, and it's sure got to be more than 10 and 20% in the world that we're living in. When you look at here you are here and where you want to go to, right? How much money are you really going to need for that? And you have to develop a growth mindset and think about long-term planning and thoughts. And the short term of you want this now is not going to work. So you need to think about a lot of mind thought about, like you guys are talking about, where you're going to live, making sure you have the right paperwork, making sure your money is going to last you as long as you're alive. It is a jungle out there. It's hard to believe, understand, trust people. And the information is so convoluted by most people are just trying to sell you a product, right? So then they position everything that they're talking about to sell that one product. And it is really a financial jungle. So you need someone that's been through it thousands of times to help you get through it. And then there's lots of these poachers, right, that are trying to get us and our friends by commissions, taxes, fees, things that you don't really understand. Like I said, it's not your fault that you don't understand it. You weren't taught it. But when you really figure out how much brokerage fees you're paying and how many hidden fees inside of the brokerage are there that aren't on the statement, and then how much money you pay your broker every year, and then if you move something, you have to pay them for that. You calculate that in there with risk. You are not making the amount of money that you think you're making. So what I do is I like to target these dangers, the market volatility, like I talked about, the taxes and inflation. So if you can get this income that comes to you tax-free or tax deferred, you're gonna be prosperous, right? Long-term care, catastrophic illness, medical bills. This is the hardest one for us to talk about. It's the saddest one because it's family, but it's a reality because 7 out of 10 of us, 70% of us on this call will have some sort of a catastrophic, God forbid, sorry to tell you, the power of starting now, right, or yesterday, and like I say, without judgment, without feeling bad that you haven't, but taking some of the money that you've created, that you've put your life energy in, and learning about income you'll never outlive. And what Warren Buffett, the power of compounding. Insurance, what the life insurance, depending on your age and depending on what you can, be able to qualify for. There is a problem with your qualified money. Those of you that have IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, money you've stashed away thinking, oh, great, this is just deferred money. Well, guess what? When you retire, start taking the money out of there, you're going to be paying taxes at ordinary income. Hello, California. Right? Ordinary income on that money that you thought. So you maybe have $1 million saved or 100,000, no judgment. You really don't. If you're, ordinary income is 40, 50, 60, sometimes in California, you don't have what you think you have. So there's something very cool called an IRA reboot. And what we're able to do is to convert that IRA into tax-free income for life, into a tax-free account that can literally take care of you in a nursing home. 7 out of 10 people will need long-term care. 3 out of 100 will have fire in their home. How many in California have a fire insurance? Hello, right? 18 out of 100 have car. Very important to have car insurance. The cost is anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, $25,000 a month. A month for care. You've got to expect the unexpected. And you know what? California, look at the lists. Many states are going to be passing laws that if you don't have long-term care insurance, you're going to get taxed. Why? Because Medicare is broke. And when you go into a nursing home and you don't have money, then the state has to pay 20 days. And then the next 80 days, you co-pay with Medicare, which is $15,000, $20,000. After 100 days, you're on your own, period. That's going to come out of whatever money you have. Hey, if you don't have any money left, they'll put a lien on your house. How about that? It's not a pretty story. You've got to plan for 100. Even if it's not in your family history, plan for 100. Things are changing fast. They really do have cures for cancer. They just don't tell everybody about them. There are things out there. So that's how you want to plan. You want to make sure that your money is safe and it's going to last you longer than you live. Then you have a living legacy and have money, what I call life after work. The inflation, that little dollar that you take into the store is worth less. So by you losing principal, the value of your dollar is less. But guess what? In the next couple of years, this money system is going to change radically. So you got to pay attention to this. You just don't want to, go into the robot, doing what everybody else is telling you to do. Really study this and take time so you understand how to protect your assets, how to create income you'll never outlive, and everything that you want to know about. And make sure you have a revocable living trust to start with. That's the foundation. And a complete revocable trust is like a blanket of protection for you and your family. What is a trust? A trust is a legal entity that's created to own, manage your estate, and avoid probate. So everything is included in your trust. It is not just end of life. Living trusts help you while you're alive. You should have got one during the pandemic for powers of attorney, for health, for financial. I want my family and friends to help me, not some strange doctor that doesn't know me or really even care, honestly. So you want to make sure you have this guardianship for minor children. What it does, it helps you protect it and all the fees and taxes and keeps you out of probate. So when you have a living trust, you literally can give what you have to your family with no middlemen. You don't need me, you don't need attorneys, and you don't need to go through court. Making sure that you're not drowning in taxes. You get a stepped up tax basis when you have a living trust. I'm sure that most of you understand what a stepped up tax basis is, but And I'm not a tax advisor, but simply put, in first grade language, basically, if my husband and I have a home and he goes to heaven before I do, and I want to sell the home, I am going to get the appraised value of the home, the capital gains from the death of the first spouse. So if I sell it a year later, I only have 1 year's capital gains. That's pretty cool. That's a tax advantage of the living trust. Yeah, you can take it with you, but we can take all the good feelings and memories and family in our hearts. But the stuff, it comes and it goes. And it usually, Oliver Window Homes it usually goes before you do. So again, you want to make sure you have the right paperwork to avoid probate, conservatorship. What's that? If you become incapacitated, you want someone that you trust to be able to make those medical decisions for you. The power of attorney for healthcare that we have in California is really great. It's elaborate. So there's section 1 and section 2. Section 2 is the part where you can get real jiggy on what you want. Like, do you want chemo? You don't want chemo. Do you want holistic, or you want, I'm vegan, I don't want this kind of food, or whatever. You can have all of those things stated so that if you're out of it, then your power of attorney, the person you trust, can come and honor your wishes. And then you maintain complete control of all the assets you put in the trust. So it's so important that you really understand strategies and how all the strategies work. When you get your living trust, you're going to make sure all your assets are in the name of the trust. Checking, savings, CDs, real estate. Make sure it's in the trust. Your LLC, you go to the attorney or the paralegal, whoever made or tax person that made your LLC, have them make a note to assign that property, that LLC or whatever structure you have, owned by your living trust. Keeps you out of court. Anyway, why don't people know about this? The information has been withheld for centuries. These are all the important documents that you want to have. And the living trust wraps up everything that we've been talking about. Again, your state of mind, that you can be at peace with everything that you have going on, and you don't have to worry about anything. Again, it's not, you put your money, right? Don't put your money in trust. You don't want to trust money, but you want your money in trust. That's Oliver Window Homes. All the sayings, there's something to it. Remember, it's never a straight line. And the idea is to get your financial strategy and financial fitness in order so you can cover all of these things.